Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. My name's Matt and today I'm going to be showing you how to install a concealed basin tap and also a concealed shower unit. And just last night I put the mains water and connected it up to the system, so we've done a pressure test and luckily there's no leaks on any of the stuff that I've done. I've done it in plastic pipe with the John Guest speed fittings because I've heard from a good couple of plumbers that they are the new age of plumbing. It's got 25-year guarantee on all of the fittings and it's leak free. Just make sure that everything is straight and not going at an angle and you don't have any leaks on the system. I've also got some compression fittings on there that work with the John Guest system, so very happy with that, and I'll be talking a little bit more about how to do the compression fittings to stop yourself from getting leaks as well. But yeah, let's talk about how to actually fit the basin taps themselves at first and how to position them. You basically need to find out what your final wall finish is going to be. So if you've got plasterboard, it's probably going to be 12.5 millimeters plasterboard plus about a 3 to 5 millimeter skim over the top. It's probably about 3 mil, so let's go for 3 mil. That's a total of about 15.5 mil. My cladding is actually 15 mil as well, so it would be a similar sort of distance to this. But what you need to do is just offer it up on the studs to see what the final position of the tap is going to be like, and then take the back structure of your tap and just offer it up against the wall. You might need 2 people for this, and just measure the distance that where you want the structure to be fitted. And so for me it was actually approximately 24 millimeters that I needed distance away from this side of the wall. If you don't have anything to screw into, you can do things like some other kind of backing, like put more stud work in there. So basically just put another stud horizontally across and then screw it onto that, and then just chip out away at the stud to how far you need it to sit back. I've done that over here actually because it was in the middle of a stud, so you can see here I've just chipped away into the stud and fitted the valve. I'll show you more about that in a second. So offer it up, find the position you want, and make sure that you screw it into something very solid. I've got 2 pieces of 12 mil plywood here, and the tap itself is actually 1.1 meter off the ground because the basin itself is going to be 900 mil above the ground. So if you think about in a kitchen, most kitchen units are 900 mil above the ground, and that's a perfect height for washing your hands, doing the dishes and stuff like that. And so you want the tap to be about 20 centimeters or 25 centimeters above that. The same applies to the bathroom. You've got your vanity unit, which will be about 900 mil, 800 mil above the ground, and then you're going to have your tap above it. I'm doing a wall mounted vanity with a bowl above it. The bowl is going to be sticking up into this, but the actual vanity will be about 800 to 900 mil, which will be sitting approximately here. So I'm happy with this position, and I put it in the center of the wall from where the shower will finish and the door starts. So it's a nice central position. So that's enough for positioning. But on the concealed shower, it was slightly different. We've got a piece of stud wall, which ended up being directly in line with where I wanted to put the shower valve. And so what I've done, I've got a nice level surface for it to sit on. So it's got one angle covered, it's sitting on that. And then to make it something sturdy to fix against, I put these plastic shims here. So what I did is I just offered this into position where I wanted it to be, made sure it was level, and then filled the gap with these 2 shims. So I have a 6 millimeter shim and a 5 millimeter shim, and that just made sure it was sitting nice and level. And I screwed through with a 50 millimeter screw, so it's sticking quite far into that wood, and it's nice and sturdy. It's not going anywhere, and you don't want it to be moving around because when that lever goes up and down, up and down, up and down, eventually it's going to get loose and you're going to start getting leaks because you're moving with the pipes. Yeah, just make sure it's nice and solid. So there's one tip for you. The way I figured out the position of the shower unit was the same as before. I'm going to be having cement board, which will come up to here. Cement board is about, I think it's 12.5 mil as well, and that will finish there, and then there'll be 10 millimeters worth of tiles and adhesive. So it'll actually finish approximately here, which is a little bit further out than the basin tap, but I also needed, you can see here, I needed enough space to conceal those pipes. So if I take this away, you can see I needed those pipes to disappear into the wall. There was not much I could do other than just setting it back as far as it needed to be. That's how I chose the position of this. It's actually in the center of a 900 millimeter by 900 millimeter shower tray. So this is 450 mil into the center of the shower. And then above this, obviously we've got these studs in the way, and also this boiler is in the way. So I couldn't put the pipes directly up to the shower head, so I just put them off to the side. Also, if I put it here, there would be nothing to screw into, so I put it up to the top and then made up this bit of stud work, which I set back. You can see it's slightly set back from the surface here. There's a gap there. so that this elbow, I think it's called an compression end plate elbow. I'll put a link in the description for all of the products used in this video so you can find them for yourselves, because it's sometimes difficult to find the names of products that you need to find the solution for your projects. For example, this is called a male-ended compression, and I will put a link in the description for that because I highly recommend using those. I'll tell you why in a second. This is called an end plate elbow compression, and you need that because on normal compression elbows you don't have these screw holes, so there's nothing to fix into the wall other than it just being loose in the wall, and you need it to be secure to the wall because when you put the shower head on, the shower head has to stay still somehow. Otherwise, if the shower head be just going like this. Yeah, use a end plate elbow. There's a link in that below, link for that below. And one other very important tip I wanted to tell you is don't go for elbow fittings straight out of your shower valve, because compression elbows, the normal ones, they don't have a finishing point for the thread. So you'll be screwing this into the side of the shower unit, and then eventually the shower unit will touch this rounded bit here, and then you won't be able to screw it in anymore, and all you're left with is, if you've got PTFE tape on here to seal the thread, you're just left with however tight that PTFE thread is on this thread, and you'll just have to stop it wherever the elbow finishes. Like the elbow might finish here, might finish there, it might finish up here, but really you want the pipes to be going up into it like that. So you're sort of stuck. And the same issue applies if you get an elbow with an end plate on it. So some elbows have a flange just here where the thread stops and there's a flat plate which you can screw up against something. But the same issue applies, because once the thread finishes and the end plate hits the valve on this bit here, you're stuck, because wherever it finishes, you're going to hit the end plate and it might not be in the position that you want it to finish. So my advice is to make sure you go for a male coupler. It's a male thread coupling 15mm compression fitting. The actual name for it is below because that was not a very good description of what actually it is. But put PTFE tape, probably about 10 winds of PTFE tape, maybe 14 revolutions of PTFE tape onto the thread, and then screw it in. And luckily these also have an end plate on them. You can see there is a flat section. You can see there's a flat section there where there's something to screw up against. And that means that once you've tightened it enough, it will then start squeezing this PTFE tape around the edges, and it will create a really nice seal. And then once you come out of it, you can then use an elbow to go down in whatever position you want, and you're not restricted by wherever the elbow finishes. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that, or 2 pence on that, because I'm from England. And for all of the compression fittings, if you want to get a nice tight seal, make sure you use jointing compound. It's called Fernox potable water jointing compound, and this is like an industry standard thing. You can find it anywhere. I'll put a link in the description for it below. It's basically like a putty, and you just get it on your finger, and when you've got the compression fitting, basically just put some putty on both sides of the olive, so you have like a copper olive in here, and just put it on both sides of the olive, and then also on the thread of the compression fitting, and then tighten it up. When it stops moving, when you're tightening it by finger tight, leave it there, and then tighten it up with a spanner about 1.5 turns, and that should be enough for the copper to grip onto the pipe below, which is either plastic or copper. I haven't had any leaks on any of these fittings that I've used compression fittings on. I don't like using compression fittings usually, but you don't have any choice with these because it's the only thing that will screw in. Like, you have a compression fitting that has a thread on it, but you don't have any other fittings that have a thread on it. The best method for me that I've found is using that jointing compound. And also you can get push fit isolation valves. I've got isolation valves here that are compression fit, but the cost difference is just too much. Like, it's like £6 for a push fit, which is this. It's called a John Guest speed fitting, but these are like £2 or £1 depending on which isolation valve you want to get. I just think it's too expensive, so I didn't bother going with it, and I've got a really nice tight seal with no leaks on any of these ones that I've done with the jointed compound, so very happy with that. When you're chipping out against the stud work, just make sure you use a nice sharp chisel. I use the multi-tool, which is just like an oscillating blade. These are really good for just doing really fast cuts into stud work, or cutting around your light switches or whatever, and making that perfect box shaped cut. You can't really do that with a jigsaw or a chisel, so I used that to start with, and then when I was just trying to get the right depth, I used a chisel and just scraped away at it, and eventually I got this nicely cut out area, and I just went to the side and then went up and then screwed that shower head in position. One last thing, I promise you, it's one last thing, which is make sure that all of your pipes are straight. When it goes from plastic pipe into compression fitting, I've made sure that the pipe is not off at an angle, because in here you've got a rubber O-ring which seals the pipe, and you don't want too much pressure to be on one side of the O-ring because otherwise it will leak on the other side. And the issue here is that the John Guest speed fittings are slightly wider in diameter, so although you don't need much space for the compression fittings, you can see here that I've notched into the wood a little bit deeper just to make sure that this JG speed fitting is sitting further back so that this pipe can be straight and into this compression fitting. Like I said, it's going to help with leaks. And you can see on this side here how it can be a little bit awkward when you're going from this compression fitting, which sits flush against the wood, and then you've got a slightly wider, let me show you from underneath, JG speed fitting, which is then going to be lifted away from the wall because it's slightly larger in diameter, but you want it to be nice and straight. So you can see here what I've done. I've just chipped away into that wood and made sure that the fitting is nice and straight in, and you can see no leaks, there's no water on there at all. Let me just anyway, the only thing is we did have 2 leaks on the boiler, which I did not fit. I got a plumber to do this because I'm not very confident with copper work, and it was a very tight space. In his favour, he couldn't really test the system because it wasn't connected up to mains water supply, so he would have just seen those leaks straight away and just nipped up or tightened the compression fitting. One of the solder fittings is leaking, so I've asked him to come back and he'll fix it on Wednesday. But that's all of it for fitting the concealed taps and shower units. I hope you found this useful. I hope you like the taps. Actually, I'm going to be showing you how the taps look up against, I'm using Mandarin Stone Hoxton green tiles. So I'm doing a herringbone look in here, so the tiles are going to be at a 45-degree angle. It's just going to look so nice and earthy and really cool, especially up against these gold brushed shower fittings and taps. So if you want to see more, please do subscribe to the channel. I've got loads more videos on shepherd's huts. I've got loads more videos that I haven't yet uploaded just because I've been focusing on doing this build, and also it's my first time building a shepherd's hut, so I've made quite a few mistakes that I hope you guys can learn from. So I've just been recording as I go, and I will be talking over the top of them. A lot of them are going to be time-lapse videos of me doing the work and actually telling you the right way to do things, because there are a few mistakes that I made that I think you can learn from. But hopefully you found this video useful and you get along well with fitting your own concealed taps. It's a little bit more difficult than just fitting something onto a wall, but it's really not that hard. As you've seen, you just need to make sure you have it at the right distance away from the wall, and it's basically fixed nice and securely because you don't want it to be wobbling off and affecting the pipework behind. So hope you like this video. Please do subscribe if you found it useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I've got loads more stuff on shepherd's huts coming. I'll show you a view from the outside so you can see it for yourself. So this is what it looks like. So if you want to see more of this, then subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.